everyone, welcome back for another video. Today I'm off for a cycle ride, but I thought I'd do an introduction to a video. I'll probably show the entire trip if you want to watch it. But the introduction, what on earth am I doing riding a bicycle, putting stupid silly yellow jackets on and yes, helmets. I do have a helmet to match as well. I don't know why I do it. I don't know why I've bought this bike sometimes, because I like cycling. But the problem with cycling is it only works when you're cycling on your own, when you're cycling without other people around. Because here in the UK, cycling just isn't the first priority for transport. And if you take Norwich as an example, it's just abysmal what's going on. They're trying to take the cycles off the road so that cyclists are safer and they don't mix with the traffic. But cycles are getting faster, electric scooters, electric bikes. So the speed and the flow actually suits being on the road more. I was taught cycle proficiency in the 70s to ride on the road, not on the path where it's dangerous with mothers, with prams and children. And my first experience of riding this bike through Norwich city centre on the cycle paths, the multi-million-pound cycle paths, was that it was bloody dangerous with pedestrians. I mean, it's not only that you've got different variations of cyclists going in different directions on the same cycle lane. So you've got people doing 5 miles an hour, people doing 10 miles an hour, electric cycles doing 15, sports cyclists doing 20 miles an hour. It's that you don't have priority over the cars. So as you come to a road junction and you have to cross it, because that's where the cycle lane goes, you have to stop and bump off a curb and bump on a curb. They're supposed to be ramped, but they're not, are they? I mean, they're just lowered curbs. So it just doesn't seem to work. You're always stopping and starting, and you're always being pushed as a cyclist into a system of more congestion. So when I went through Norwich, the cycle lanes were just divided by a white lane and a white picture of a bicycle on there. Basically the lanes were covered and, you know, with a mass of pedestrians that were walking left, right, turning round, instantly changing direction. It's an absolute nightmare trying to avoid them. So you can't ride properly, you can't ride quickly, and you can't ride safely. You constantly got to be aware at your wit's end as to what's going on around you. If you're actually on the road, you're driving in a single direction, single flow, keeping up more with traffic. The only people you're inconveniencing is people that are trying to do 30 miles an hour on the road, whereas actually Norwich now is mostly 20 miles an hour everywhere, and you're trying to do 15, 16 miles an hour on a bicycle. The bike actually suits being on the road, and yet the planners are all trying to move cyclists to cycle lanes because they're being given millions of pounds in grants to create cycle lanes because that's the green thing to do. You know, I've just bought this cycle. I like cycling, but everything I see with traffic planning seems wrong around Norwich and Norfolk. They're constantly trying to slow traffic down, to narrow roads, to widen paths, to make cycle lanes. So they're pushing traffic closer together. The lanes are getting narrower despite vehicles getting bigger. The planners just seem to keep making it worse, and it seems so obvious. The traffic that exists and the road system that exists doesn't suit having a lane for pedestrians, a lane for cyclists, in fact 2 lanes for cyclists, 1 each way, and multiple lanes for cars. There isn't the space, it doesn't fit. The true best answer for cyclists is a completely independent cycle lane somewhere, away from cars and traffic, away from pedestrians. But that just doesn't exist. Anyway, there's my introduction. What the hell am I doing on a bicycle when this is what I think of the UK and cycling? It's not fit for purpose. And the bane of my life isn't just pedestrian, it's sports cyclists. They're the worst, aren't they? Because they don't have a bell on the bike. You know, it must be too much weight because they want to go faster. They will not stop, they will not slow down because they're on their timed schedule. They don't integrate and share the road or the path with other people. They're not considerate. Anyway, let's go for a trip, let's go for a cycle ride, let's see what Norwich is like and see where I go. And I don't know where all the cycle lanes are, so I'll be making it up as I go along, trying to look for the best place to go. Is it well signed? Can I see? Can I go in the right place? How many incidents will there be? And I bet they're not with cars, I bet they're with pedestrians. Anyway, let's have a look, let's see how we get on.
Reset the trip meter, and we're starting with 100% battery. And the range says 81 miles, rather optimistic I think, but have a look at that. The maximum speed I've had so far, 31 miles an hour. This bike flies. So you join me on a country lane heading into Norwich. I'm doing about 15, 16 miles an hour here. What I'd like to say though is that introduction was filmed before I set off, and I had quite a negative view of what was going to happen and what Norwich cycling was like, because I'd had a previous experience going into Norwich, trying the new cycle lanes, and found they were really dangerous because of how they integrate with pedestrians. There really are a lot of new, pretty looking paved areas with cycle markings on them, but there's no division from pedestrians, and pedestrians do not look where the cycle lanes are, and they just don't care. So there's always pedestrians on the cycle lane, and for me, I find that more dangerous than actually cycling on the road. So anyway, this trip actually shows some of the good and the bad, because the journey out, the journey I'm on right now, shows some of the bad things about Norwich, and I try to find a route that avoids going through some of the more pedestrian areas. So I'm trying to find some of the better areas, but it does highlight the problem of cycling in lanes where pedestrians are. The road side of things actually works out quite well and shows that Norwich drivers are quite considerate towards cyclists. So it's a bit more positive than I thought to start with. But on the return trip, after I've done 15 miles to go and visit a friend to have a look at his solar panels, on the way back I take a completely different route, and there's a more dedicated cycle route called the Marriots Way. Now that is shared with pedestrians and dog walkers, so that's the bad side of it. You do have to slow down for them, but it's much, much better than the route and the cycle lanes that they've spent millions of pounds on. And I think proves my point that cycling and cycle lanes, you're actually best on the roads, integrating with the traffic. What we want are wider roads. And that's what we really want. So there's space to pass, and the planners just don't seem to get that. They keep seeming to take some of the road away, making it more narrow, give more pavement space, and then mix pedestrians with cyclists. I just don't understand that. It doesn't seem to work. Anyway, ride along with me and let's see how we get on. So here I'm joining the slip road from the A47, and although looking on the video it does seem sometimes that I'm not looking what I'm doing, because the camera isn't mounted on the helmet, the camera is mounted on the handlebars, so I am looking around, I am checking what's coming, and I am anticipating traffic quite a lot. One of the things you'll have to excuse me for, though, is I must learn to be better at waiting, not trying to nip ahead and nip round corners and cheat the system. I think occasionally I might not have done the right thing, so please don't watch out for where I do everything wrong and perhaps break a law or two. I'm sure I'll get better as time goes on and I have more experience. Here's one of the points that I noticed before. There's no signs here anywhere to say where the cycle lane is. I could have ridden on the road, and I did that last time, but down here somewhere there's a cycle lane that comes in from the left. And I didn't see it, I had no idea where it was or how to get to it. Just goes to show again, the signing and how you're supposed to know where the cycle lanes are is pretty bad. There's no smooth transition from one position to another without knowing exactly where the cycle lanes are. And I think you can just start to see it coming up on the left here somewhere. It seems to come out from nowhere, and all of a sudden there is a cycle path. And there it is on the left-hand side there. And from here, we've now got to cut across to the right. Now, I am looking, despite it saying red, there's no buses there because this is closed. But you know, this tight turn again, what was that all about? Why haven't a cycle got a smooth transition across there? How many curbs am I having to bump across to get across one junction? It really is annoying, because it would be so much better just to ride on the road and follow the flow of the traffic and wait at the traffic lights. So I find all this bumping on and off the curb and having to look and check so many times much more dangerous than actually riding on the road. The other thing here, am I on a cycle lane right now, or is this a pedestrian path? It's not wide enough for pedestrians and cycles. It's not wide enough almost for a cyclist coming the other way. So again, it's not really fit for purpose. I would prefer to be on the road right now, because I know at some point I've now got to bump down onto the road and I've got to join the flow of traffic. If I was already there, it would be safer. So whilst I'm cycling, one of the things I could tell you about is a test I've been doing on the bike. I've been trying to work out the differences in Eco Standard and High Assistance Mode, seeing how much energy each of them uses. So I've got a test loop that I do with electric cars to see how economical they are, and it's just over 7 miles long. Now I've been setting off in eco mode, standard and high on separate days, and measuring how much energy we're having to recharge the battery, what the range is reducing by, those sort of things, and the time it takes and the speed I'm doing. So the stats for that are quite interesting. In eco mode, I was taking about half an hour. I'll put the actual stats on the screen. And I think the average miles per hour was 13 point something miles per hour that I was doing for that test loop, and only used 90 watt hours, so less than 1/10 of a kilowatt hour, to recharge the battery after the trip. I can't remember the state of charge of the battery that it went down to. If I was guessing, low 90, something like 91%. Again, I'll put that on the screen. The standard mode one was really interesting because, yes, it used a bit more energy, so I think I went down to 89% battery, but the speed went up. I think it was 25, 26 minutes instead of half an hour, so I saved about 5 minutes in time, and the average speed went up to about 16 miles an hour. And that's the key, that what I found was there was enough power assistance to get me quickly to the maximum speed where it delivers electrical assistance, and then you're using your own pedal power. That's 16 miles an hour. So the entire average was 16 miles an hour. Just worth pointing out here, I'm not going really close to the curb. The action camera that I've got on the handlebars is more on the left hand side, so it looks like I'm hugging over to the left, where actually I'm holding a sensible position, just avoiding the drain covers. Anyway, so yeah, standard mode was really good, and what I found was I was putting more effort in and using my legs a lot more, pushing to get beyond that 16 miles an hour speed. So in eco mode I was struggling to get up to the speed. In standard mode I was reaching the maximum speed and then pedaling to get beyond the 16 miles an hour. So I was actually going faster, and that's why obviously the speed of the trip was shorter. In high mode I found it was about the same time distance and about the same speed, but it was the method of how you got to the 16 miles an hour. It was a little bit quicker, it was a little bit more energy in doing it. You didn't have to pedal at all really to get to it. So there wasn't much difference between standard and high, because I was basically getting to the 16 miles an hour, then I was pedaling myself at the speed above that in both standard and high mode. So I found them very, very similar. But the high mode actually used more energy. So in standard mode it only took, I think, 10, not 90 watt hours, it was 1/10 of a kilowatt, 100 watt hours. So it was a little bit more energy in standard mode, and then in high mode it used more energy again. I think that was 110 watt hours instead of the 100. So it definitely used more energy, and I didn't save much on the average speed either. So I'm finding that high energy, high assistance mode is draining the battery more, but I'm not actually noticing the benefit very much. So the next thing I'm going to try, this bike has actually got an auto mode, so it automatically adjusts between eco, standard and high depending on what effort you're putting into the pedals. I'm going to try that, and in fact on this route that's what I'm trying. It did seem to use a lot of the battery, percentage wise, but again I don't know how accurate that percentage is. So it'd be interesting to do this trip again in standard mode. And I think standard is my favourite. It's the best combination of assisting you quickly to get up to the maximum speed, but not using too much energy. Plus also encouraging you to actually pedal. So again, most of my pedaling isn't in getting up to the speed. It's once I get to 16 miles an hour, then there's no pedal assistance, there's no electrical power, I'm just pedaling on my own. So I'm using the electric power to get up to speed, and then I'm pedaling on my own. And every time I get to a hill, obviously instead of slowing down a lot, what I'm doing is slowing down from say 18, 19 miles an hour, I'm slowing down to 15.9, and then suddenly I've got electrical assistance again, and I'm flying up the hill at 15.9 miles an hour. So every time I come to a hill, I'm slowing down to get the electric assistance, that's all, and then I'm maintaining the same speed pretty much, and that's why I get an average of around 16 miles an hour. Anyway, lots of waffling, lots of talk, and yeah, this is Thorpe St Andrew. Quite a nice area, lovely wide roads, apart from the cars parked at the side. And it's not congested enough, so cars aren't in the way. They really don't mind the cyclists. There was only one section back there where there were so many parked cars, and it's quite narrow. Cars can't get past you. Anyway, here we go. A cycle lane suddenly appears at the junction as you cross the traffic lights, and then it's gone. So you got a pedestrian pavement on the left-hand side and no cycleway again. You know, was there any point in having that at the traffic lights? I think sometimes Norwich is trying to encourage cycles go to the front, so they encourage you to jump the queue. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, because when I seem to be doing that, it encourages you to do it more often, and then in places where that little extra cycle lane doesn't exist, you're actually doing the wrong thing. Yeah, look at that. It looks like I'm going up onto the curb there, doesn't it? But I'm not. So anyway, that was a small example of how it's confusing with these damned cycle lanes and the cycle initiatives that they're doing around Norwich. They're just not consistent. I do think sometimes as well about cycling that if it's okay right now, like on this road, there's just me and there's not a lot going on, so it's easy for cars to get ahead. Well, imagine if I was cycling in a line of cycles now, because imagine if there were dozens and dozens of people all doing the same thing instead of cars. Well, the cars wouldn't be able to get past because you'd have cycles on both sides as well. So there'd be no room to pass with 1.5 meters either side. So cars would have to slow down to the level of bikes. And that's sort of my fear, that all these integrations and all the things that they're doing with road management and increasing cycle lanes is great while there aren't a lot of cycles, but if we do get a lot of cycles, then it's going to transform the driving of cars. And it's fine if we're all electric bikes doing 15 to 20 miles an hour, because the cars don't have to wait too much. But when, like this, a little hill, and someone's cycling up there at 5 miles an hour, struggling and wobbling away, if you can't get past, that's extremely frustrating for a car. So it's not the right thing to do. So I'm really not sure how this is going to go, because I can't see the cycling initiatives that Norwich is doing as being enough to encourage people to go on the roads safely. But if they did, and if they got it right, then I think it would be a nightmare for cars. So unless they attack reducing the number of cars that are on the roads, at the same time as encouraging the extra cyclists, I really can't see this working. And then one of the things that bugs me is the people that just think cycling and public transport is the way to go and they hate cars. Public transport is, and there's one, an absolute pain in the backside. So there's lots of bus lanes in Norwich, but you can cycle on them as well. But of course the buses don't fit in the lanes if there's a cycle there. And what do? They overtake and they want to go in then the car lanes. So what's the point of having it if they can't keep in their lanes? Here's the difference of pedal assist versus non-pedal assist. A chap a little bit older than me, I think he was, and he was struggling up that hill and enjoying the free ride down, where I keep pedalling and easily go past. There we go again, another set of traffic lights, this time no provision for cyclists. So there's just no consistency here. So we're just coming up to a section here where Norwich has changed the road system, spent millions of pounds improving the bus route, making it one way for cars around the long way, giving buses a shorter route, saving them about 10 seconds. And I'm supposed to turn right here. There's some paintwork on the road there saying cycles turn right. But I found that takes you through a highly pedestrian area where it's not a easy cycle lane to cycle on without getting in the way of pedestrians or pedestrians getting in my way. So I found a different route, and I think it's a bit more interesting rather than just going through the city centre and seeing pedestrians all the time. So anyway, I'm heading towards Carrow Road now at the Norwich City Football Ground, and yeah, I think this is where I bump the curb as well and make a mistake I shouldn't have done. I should have stayed on the road and waited. But anyway, a mistake that I make, and I'm going to learn from that and try and be better. I think we're now coming up to the traffic lights at the bottom here, where they're about to turn, so I'm thinking, I know, I could just bump onto the curb and go round, where I should have been patient. So close your eyes. I'm looking and looking and looking. Please, no one pull out from behind these cars. Yeah, and lo and behold, there's no dropped curbs, so I can't get off. Whoops, that doesn't look very nice for getting off either, so I have to go round. I should have waited on the road, shouldn't I? Anyway, there's Carrow Road, the football ground, and at the back of it, Geoffrey Watling Way. Some nice apartment blocks, and I think there's a gym round here as well. So it's a nice quiet area. There's not a lot of traffic around. There's no pedestrians. This is quite nice. Behind those blocks of apartments, that's the main river as well. So that's what we've got to cross. We've got to cross the river. So looking at my options, I have to work out which bridge am I going to cross. And there's a nice pedestrian one up here. Rather than one with cars going across, there's a nice pedestrian one that I can get across. This is where cycling's good. Not a lot of traffic, no pedestrians. I'm actually really, really enjoying this ride. Now I'm going to have to wait here at these traffic lights because this is the bus lane only. Cyclists are supposed to be on the pavement to the left. Yep, which I just realised. Push the button and wait lots of time. But why couldn't they implement, if it's a proper cycle lane, why couldn't they implement a flyover, a bridge that goes over the top of the traffic and you just cycle over the top? Why do we have to wait? You know, if they build cycle lanes that keep the flow of cycling going, more people will use it. This stopping and starting and waiting for cars isn't as enjoyable, so it's not going to encourage people to want to do it. One of the things I noticed here, sat at these traffic lights, was I think I've got my seat height just slightly too high. I really am on tiptoes trying to hold the bike up, and I think I could do with just a little a bit more stability from my feet when I'm standing at junctions, because I don't actually want to get off the bike or lean over to stand it up. So a little bit of adjustment needed to get the most comfortable riding style. It's brilliant for while I'm riding. It's not when I'm having to stop. And again, I need to get off this pavement because I don't think that's a cycle lane, even though they were telling me before to get onto that lane. I need to get off the pavement and onto the road. And the pedestrian bridge, the cycle bridge, is just coming up on the left now. Heading straight ahead would be Riverside. Look how narrow this is. It's great for me. But if a cycle comes the other way, it's not wide enough. So you've got wide enough for one pedestrian one side, pedestrian on the other side, and a cycle in the middle. You haven't got enough space for a cycle going either way. So it's great as it is with not a lot of people on it, and the pedestrians, aren't they being nice, keeping to the right lane? This must be signed enough that people know what they're doing. Lots of sign writing on the road, I know what I'm doing. Now where am I going? Where is the cycle lane? No, I'm either on a pavement or the road. So the cycle lane had lots of images and suddenly it ends again. This is Rouen Road coming up to the top of the city centre area. What I love about this, it is a nice little incline and there's just no effort at all. These electric bikes really are great. Suddenly we've got bus parking on the left hand side, so I seem to be riding in the middle of the road for no reason. I really enjoyed this moment as well. So somebody's trying to park here and a car going past, so I have to slow right down. So it's almost a hill start on a bike. But because I've got that electric assistance, there's no struggle. I didn't mind having to slow right down because accelerating up the hill was very, very easy. So yeah, electric biking it really has transformed how you cycle for someone like me who's overweight, not particularly fit. I'm alright for cycling for a few miles. Again, here, did you see? Cycle lane, it was supposed to go on the left there, and yet there's another cycle lane. So it's a bit all over the place. I think I'm turning right here, and I'm not. So I've lost track of where I actually want to go. I want to go down this area to the right, which is a new pedestrianised area with cycle lanes. But you have a look. You see whether you can see where the cycle lane is. Somewhere on here there are images of cycles telling you where to cycle. What's the division between pedestrian and cyclist in this area? I can't see them. The different brick area, is that for cycles or is that for pedestrians? Which one's which? Very lucky there aren't a lot of pedestrians here at the moment. So we're now coming down to St Stephen's and Theatre Street. This is the city centre area. And here we are, we've got a junction to cross. I am on the cycle lane, and there, just in front of me, you could see some cycles, images on the pavement. But there is a pedestrian stood right in the middle of it next to me. So a lovely area, very pretty, very attractive. Millions of pounds spent on all that lovely pavement and providing cycle abilities and pedestrians, but mixing the two. And no, they don't mix very well, do they? So this is Theatre Street, coming up to the Theatre Royal in Norwich. Lots more pedestrians around the city. I've avoided this sort of high pedestrian area all the way round, so I'm quite impressed with this little route. This is the most pedestrians that I've seen. Now pretty much we're coming out of the city centre, so it should reduce now. Theatre Royal, there it is on the left hand side. Coming up to Chapelfield Gardens on the left-hand side, and this building to the left, this red brick building, it's now all apartments in there. What that used to be was the Rowntree Mackintosh chocolate factory. So they used to make the Yorkies and Lion bars and boxes of chocolates there, and my uncle used to work there, and a lot of my family members did as well. Very big enterprise in Norwich in years gone past. Sadly, all demolished, all gone. Nestle bought it out and then shut it all down. Now this route takes me up to one of the largest and most awkward and nasty roundabouts for cars that there is. So, do you know, I don't actually fancy going around that roundabout with a lot of traffic. So I decide to take another detour and miss it out completely. More bumping of curbs, making sure I'm looking left and right at the right points of time. Now we're heading back towards the city centre, but I know with a little bit of local knowledge that there's a footbridge that crosses over the main dual carriageway up ahead. So if I cut down here, past a lovely baker's that's on the right hand side, just there somewhere. Looks like we're coming up to a dead end, but I'm aware that there is a pedestrian footpath. Again, you know, they're spending all these millions of pounds. Why haven't they upgraded this bridge, this footpath, which isn't really wide enough for pedestrians and cyclists? And there was a sign back there saying cyclists dismount, and I think I'm going to struggle, and I'm just going to creep up here until I notice there is a cycle coming the other way and some guy's walking, so I'd better get off. And I think it's right about here I do get off. But that's where the cycleways could be improved. They could spend some money and upgrade the bridge and make it wider, suitable for cycles and pedestrians. Now actually I'm struggling to get back onto the bike here and work out when to bump down the curb, because it's great having that access, but where's the cycle lane? Where's the consistency getting back onto the road system? And it again just doesn't integrate. I think I just sneak on here. I've had a look behind, see what's coming. And we're off again. This is Earlham Road. So this is the top of Unthank Road, the top of Grapes Hill, coming down Earlham Road, heading towards Thorpe now. And the reason I'm heading this way is because our daughter's just moved into a friend's place that's just round the corner. And I wanted to try this route to see how effective it was at avoiding two of the main pedestrian routes, because she has to commute from here across to Gridserve every day. This road, though, Earlham Road, is a really good example of what the planners are doing. So you've got lots of houses left and right, and they don't have driveway space, or a lot of driveway space, so you do find cars parked on the road. They've reduced the speed limit down to 20 miles an hour, and further up here they've put those bollard systems in, so you've got bollards on the road making a cycle lane for cyclists. So you've got speed bumps, you've got 20 miles an hour, you've got bollard system cyclists, and very narrow footpaths. There just isn't space with parked cars on both sides to fit all of the traffic And there's no way that anyone's going to pass me here with traffic oncoming, etc., keeping 1.5 meters away. So it's pretty inconvenient for the cars, and hence they've slowed it all down to 20 miles an hour as well. If a cyclist was going up this hill at 5 or 10 miles an hour, I'd be pretty frustrated. So this is a good example of what Norwich is like and how they're trying to pedestrianise it and trying to encourage cyclists, but they're not actually doing a great job. And have a look at this. Look how narrow it is with the amount of cars that's here. One of the things that crosses my mind is all of these people that are living here with cars are living in the wrong type of property, aren't they? If they rely on cars, not public transport and cycles, then these houses would suit people better that have the use of public transport and cycles. These cars parked everywhere are just getting in the way. What's the solution? Well, if it was me and I was in charge of the council, I would make all of this parking permit zones and I would charge them a lot of money. I would discourage them from having cars in this area, and I would offer schemes to give cycles to these people. So now I'm cutting through some of the side roads and heading off Earlham Road onto the other main road that's heading the same direction, the Dereham Road. So this is the old A47 before they put the dual carriageway bypass in around Norwich. This was the main route all the way through the centre. Quite a wide road, no bus lanes, no cycle lanes, just the footpath and cycling on the road. And again, coming to this junction here, the traffic lights, I wish the curb was a bit taller there so I could put my foot down easily, but instead I'm on tiptoes waiting and waiting for these traffic lights to change. Luckily I don't have to wait too long. One of the things that I was doing while I was cycling, I was EV spotting, and there's quite a few electric cars around now, and there's a nice variety around Norwich, whether it's SUVs, Audis, Porsches, lots and lots of Teslas, Nissan Leafs, Zoes. There's just about everything. So I don't know if you've been watching out for them along the way, but that was what I was doing while I was cycling. So we're just joining up with the main ring road of Norwich now. So yeah, a high area of traffic, cars and trucks, etc. And there's no cycle lane. There's no bus lane here either. Just a pedestrian path on the left-hand side. But look, cycle. They want me to go on the pavement. They are pushing me here off the road onto the pavement with pedestrians to try and cross this roundabout. They want me to bump on and off there. Now, why are they doing that? Why have they forced cyclists off? When I used to commute this road every day, there was nothing like that for cyclists. So you went on the road and you integrated. Why are they pushing me onto the pavement with pedestrians where it's more dangerous and stopping the flow of cyclists? Anyway, this is a bit of a shortcut. I'm shortcutting to get to Costessey now, going alongside the river on the right-hand side, keeping away from all of the traffic. So again, a little bit of local knowledge here that there are some nice places to cycle away from those main roads. But occasionally, you can't miss. You have to cross those junctions of main roads. And I can't help but think as I'm cycling along here, hang on, there's blue skies, a little bit of sunshine here. Look at this, there's a shadow. I wonder what my energy is showing on the app. I wonder how much solar I've got at home. So, solar and energy is crossing my mind all the time, even while I'm cycling. I'm not sure what happens here, a little bit of an event. I think I'm going to go across, and no, I have to stop pretty quickly. And I actually have to get off the bike. I have to put my foot down on the road. Bit of a shame here, I've got to wait quite a while, too much traffic. But this is where we're joining up with the area of where the Marriots Way is. The Marriots Way is just to the right-hand side. It's not actually on this cycle path. But the cycling lanes here and the space for them is very good. Just on the right-hand side there, they've got a separated raised curb for pedestrians, and the cycle lane is completely separate. That works really well. But I know a shortcut, so I'm taking a very off-piste route here to get to where I want to go. There's a baker's in Costessey, which I used to know in many years ago, and I'm popping there to grab some bread rolls and a cake. Yes, not advertised, this route. And here we are. We've got the newsagents on the right-hand side, just up there. That's where I actually used to do a paper round when I was a boy. And the baker's is just up here on the left. So if you're in Costessey, try out Easter's Bakery. The bread there, the Norfolk Crunch loaves and rolls, really, really nice. And we're off again. This time, I'm actually not that far, not too many miles away from the friend's house that I'm going to go and see. And I'm a little bit early, so one of the things I've thought about doing is, rather than taking the quickest route, I'm going to do some reminiscing. I'm going to cycle where I used to cycle as a boy, and go and have a look at the houses where I used to live and see what's changed, explore the area. And it did cross my mind at the time that I thought cycling this sort of route and doing 25 miles in a day was pushing my luck. I was quite tired after doing 16 miles when I first picked the bike up in the last video. So 25 is extending it and pushing it some more. But when I got here, I'd realised that I hadn't really been trying that hard, and I'd been letting the electric assistants do a lot of the work. So I felt quite fresh. I felt as though I could cycle lots and lots more. So I went exploring and went off-piste and headed here onto Sunny Grove. And yeah, exploring Costessey. So yeah, fast forward if you're not interested in reminiscing with me and following me through New Costessey. But there's some interesting bits coming up a little bit further on, so hopefully you will join us. Okay, now we're heading on to Jerningham Rd. Again, this is we actually moved house in the early 80s from Jerningham Rd to Sunny Grove. So along here are some friends' houses and where we used to live as well. And some lovely traffic calming. Don't you just love it when councils do this? They put traffic calming in. And what's the point to that? You know, slow cars down apparently, but no, all it does is narrow the road and brings cars closer together, causes more congestion. Really can't understand that. It's I don't know, it's like it's a job's worth thing. Somebody's job is to slow traffic down and to put traffic calming measures in. So they put those things in, and they really are not effective. I hate speed bumps and I hate that sort of traffic calming. If you're going to do anything, put a bloomin' speed camera in and catch people and fine them. At least make some money off it. Anyway, aren't I a grumpy old sod? So there's the new Costessey playing field with Sunday football on the right-hand side. Many a day playing football there as a child. Just seems such a long time ago now. Cowboys and Indians playing armies, playing football in the street and on the field. Wow, it was a long time ago. And we're just coming up to our old house there on the right hand side, and another house with solar panels. Really liking this. Lovely family environment. New Costessey and this sort of area really was a lovely place to grow up. No cares in the world. The big thing I noticed, the difference between then and now, are the cars. Back in the day when I lived there, basically everyone was a one-car family, not a two-car family. So the car would be out of the driveway because the father would have gone to work, leaving the mother at home looking after the children. So all of these roads wouldn't have any traffic on at all. They'd be empty. So it was perfect for cycling around here. Much, much safer. Now there's just so many cars, everyone having two-car families. It's the community hall and the library on the right hand side. Coming up on the left hand side, this was the school I went to, the junior school. God, all this reminiscing that I'm doing, it's fantastic. Anyway, we'll get past the boring stuff in a minute, and a little bit more exciting, a bit of off-roading coming up. This is a good point to point out how actually high up we are. So we've got the valley there, I think it's the Waveney Valley, so it's Drayton and Taverham on the other side of the river at the bottom that you can see from there. And behind me now there are views of the cathedral and the castle. You can actually see all the high points of Norwich from there. Not sure what they were doing there. I think that was an electric car. Not sure whether they were reversing or going forwards. But again, I'm thinking here, right, the high school I used to go to is up ahead. I could go and visit that and have a peek and see what's there. That's now Ormiston Academy, when it used to be Cossey High School. But no, I want to turn right in here and take another shortcut that I'm aware of, at the place I used to go and play as a child. Bluebell Woods, as we used to call it. I'm not sure what it really is. But this makes me laugh. I used to come round here and bomb round here on my bike as a child, and no fear, I used to know it so well. You know where all the stumps and roots are, you'd know where to go. And I'm finding myself here going a little bit quicker than I'd like. I'm constantly on the brakes here, whereas as a kid I'd had no fear. I'd just been belting it down here. But anyway, yeah, I'm enjoying this. But with all the leaves on the ground, I can't quite see where all the roots are and all the holes are. So I'm going quite quick, but I do come a cropper a little bit further on here. I catch the pedal on the down pedal on a root, and I'm not sure whether we'll see the bike lurch to the side. But yeah, a little bit of a scary moment. I definitely caught it, and should have known better. But these woods are lovely. It's just coming up the next couple of months. All the bluebells are going to come through, and it's going to be quite beautiful through here. Bit of tree thinning going on. Strawberry fields to the right hand side. As a child we always used to come along and nick the strawberries out of the fields. Really nice strawberry fields. God, I'm telling you all the bad things I used to do as a kid. Being chased out of the fields by the farmer. Nice woodland this. It's got some nice hazelnut trees as well, and chestnut trees. This used to be the area we'd have to do, what do they call it when you're at school? Cross-country running. This was the cross-country running track when you were a kid, and I used to hate that. Absolutely freezing, muddy conditions, and they'd send you around here. But now it's no kids playing. Isn't it sad? You know, we always used to play down here, and now there are no kids playing. It's just walkers, dog walkers, and the occasional cyclist like me. I'll just stop here and have a little bit of a chat with that fella. As you do when you're a local lad. Off we go again. Anyway, this sort of path, I really like this sort of thing where you can hop off the road, hop off the pavement and onto an off-road scenario, and this bike is handling it really well. It's got nice front suspension, the tyres are like moped tyres and they're quite grippy. They're not designed just for roads. So this bike is really transitioning well from hard surface to a loose surface. And I'm actually really enjoying this. It's like being a kid again, getting on a bike. And that's what I'm really enjoying about the electric bike. It's, you know, the reminiscing, the doing what I used to do as a youngster, getting out, being able to go further and see more places without knackering myself too much. But that's just about the end of the woodland tour. It's coming to an end here. Looks like they've done some more changes as well. Added a bit of car park here, and I think there's a child's play area they just put in there with a load of logs. Now we're coming out here, this is Longwater Lane, so this is the transition between New Cossey and Old Cossey. Down the bottom here we're heading to Old Cossey now. So we're heading into Old Cossey now. This is West End I'm now turning onto, and interesting factoid here on the right hand side there's I think it's a primary school. It makes me laugh because when I was a kid here, that wasn't a school, it was an abattoir. So yeah, those poor kids, I wonder if they're told that the playground they're in is... yeah, some rather gruesome things used to go on there. Anyway, New Cossey and Old Cossey, as you might think, New Cossey's got more new housing. It was more newly created off the Jerningham estate, and Old Cossey has been around for a lot longer. So there's a lot more old housing. The streets are narrower. The housing stock are more older cottages and stuff. It's a lot more quaint down here. Very, very nice. Now, as I'm passing by here, one of the things that's crossing my mind is there's a barn here somewhere, a thatched barn, and it used to have a printer's in there. And it's the first place I went for an interview, and I actually went for the interview while I was still at school. They were looking for somebody to start as soon as you finish school. And I'm so glad I didn't get the job. I later found out that I did well at the interview, but they didn't want me because they thought I was overqualified for it and I wouldn't stay long enough. So yeah, I was really, really glad I didn't get that job, because if I had, my life would have taken a very different route. Instead, I got a job with the Norwich Building Society as an accounts clerk, which I was much more suited to mathematically, and I moved on from the accounts department into IT and had a really good career in IT. If I'd have taken that printer's job, God knows what would have happened to me and what my life would have been like, and which job I would have gone on to after that. You never know, dear. Choices, forks in the road, the choices you make and what happens. Just coming up to St Edmund's Church on the left-hand side. I think this is the church my brother was married at, I was christened at. So yeah, this is all very, very familiar. And just at the bottom is an old Cossey mill, and we used to go fishing there as kids. So yeah, I'm just going to pop down there and have a look, a bit more reminiscing before I head off. And here they are. Tim's got some garden space and he's going a completely different route to me. This is a DIY install that he's doing in the garden on a mixture of a framed system with those bins full of earth to hold them all down, and some of the traditional plastic bins that you put the panels on as well. So it's really interesting to look at his system and see the differences, because his is more DIY, and yeah, a ground mounted system. If you've got the space, there's a lot of options for putting solar panels in. After a couple of coffees and a lot of chatting about solar panels and energy, I'm back on my way again, but this time I'm taking a completely different route. This time I'm not going to head on the roads, I'm not going to head through Cossey. I'm taking the Marriots Way, which is the old railway line that ran between Dereham and Norwich. It's converted now into a cycleway, a walkway. So apart from pedestrians and dog walkers especially, then it's a dedicated cycleway. And really, really good. The only downside is you do get some of these damn sports cyclist people that won't give way to pedestrians, don't have a bell on the bike, and don't give dog walkers enough chance to actually get their dog under control. So that's on my mind, that while I'm going along here, I'm going to slow down for them like I would want them to as a dog walker. And I don't want them also to have their dog get in the way under the wheels of the bike either. So just time to be considerate. Worth saying as well that it's off-road at the moment. It's really bumpy, and I'm actually standing on the pedals off the saddle for the first time. This is a bit of rough roading here, and I'm really enjoying it. This Haibike Trek 6 is fantastic. The suspension and the comfort is absolutely brilliant, on-road and off-road. Got to be a bit careful coming down this track though. It's a bit sandy, a bit gravelly, and yeah, a bit loose under the tyres, and doesn't look like it on the video, but quite steep here. So I'm on the brakes, going steady, not bombing down like I would be as a 13-year-old in years gone past. What was interesting down here at the bottom, as we're now joining the Marriots Way, is they've resurfaced it. All this grey sort of gravelly stuff compacted down. It's a really nice surface. This was actually smoother to ride on than the roads that I came on alongside the Norwich Road and through Costessey, etc. The roads are all, maintained and repaired and potholed and bumps all over the place and drain covers, etc. that you've got to avoid. This path is wonderful. It's flat, it's consistent, there's nothing in the way. You can get up to speed comfortably. I'm probably doing about 18 miles an hour here, and then just slowing down as I see people with dogs, etc. If they're walking with their back to me, I'm ringing the bell well in advance so they can hear me. Give them lots of chance. So move out of the way for us. If they feel like it, if they don't want to, I'm happy just to ride slowly past. There's lots to see along the way as well. There's some artwork using some railway sleepers. There's lots of old railway bridges and rivers that you're crossing. And there's some benches to have a seat on and taking the countryside. It's a really nice place to be. So if you're in Norwich and haven't tried this Marriots Way for cycling or walking your dog, then I'd really recommend it. It's a lovely place to be. I used to play down here as a child. It was so fun. And yet, what's really sad, there's no kids out. There's no kids cycling. There's no kids playing. It's just adults walking the dogs and cycling. How times change. Although I'm keen to criticise the councils for doing a poor job with cycle routes and footpaths, etc. Here's an example where they've done a fantastic job. Last time I was here, just a couple of years ago, this was overgrown with trees and it was a rough track. You couldn't walk or cycle through here at all. They've actually paved it, so there's now two paths. There's this one, which I'm sharing with some joggers, and then there's a path to the right hand side which has a cycle lane on it and a walking lane on it. And that one's quite good. What they've done is they've got a raised up area and a lowered section, so there's a curb, so it does physically separate you between the pedestrians and the cyclists, and I like that. I like the separation. But really enjoying this drive and ride because I can't believe I'm getting close to the city centre. I'm just coming up to Helsden now, so this is where they've done some restoration work and turned this old platform, which used to be Helsden Station. They've re-put a sign up saying it's Helsden, and making it attractive for people to be around, and they've done a really good job of that. So well done, Norwich. You can do it. This sort of cycle lane really does work. Crossing the road, didn't have to wait very long, not a lot of traffic. Now we're carrying along the Marriots Way, going over another ironwork bridge in a moment, and then after that is the Sweetbriar Industrial Estate, where there's a chemical works that make, I think they make things like E45 cream and those sort of things. So it's starting to get more industrial, and then we'll be into the city centre. This path goes all the way to the city centre. And whereas previously I crossed the ring road over that horrible roundabout which I went round, this time we have an underpass that goes straight under it. No waiting, no bumping on and off curbs. This is how it should be. Reaching the end of the cycle lane here, and this is where the end of the line used to be. So mostly this railway line was used for cattle into Norwich. So the trains would arrive, they'd let the cattle out here, and then they'd walk the cattle through the city centre to the cattle market up by the castle. So I'm sure that used to be a sight yesteryear, watching cattle being walked all the way through the city centre. But no, couldn't do that now, not with the amount of cars around. So it's really sad to have now left the cycle lane, which was fantastic, and now we're back on the road system. But rather than riding on the road here, I'm going to cross over and take a few shortcuts and take you through some of the old historic Norwich, which is really, really nice. So enjoy the ride again and some of the views. So we're just crossing into the PotterGate and Colegate area. Joining up here with the bottom of Maglan Street as well. Very historic part of Norwich. Over quite a historic bridge over the main river. And then there's the cathedral on the left hand side. I'm actually going to ride through the cathedral complex, which is beautiful. But now we're back into the sort of area where Norwich has been spending millions of pounds repaving and rebuilding this area. And it looks rather nice, the paving is beautiful, but the separation between pedestrians and cycling just doesn't exist. It's not well signed, it's not well laid out, there's not enough separation. So cyclists and pedestrians are basically in each other's way. It's not a pleasant place to be when you're cycling or walking, because there's cyclists in your way all the time. This is just going under the main arch into the cathedral now. Lots and lots of people here, so I've got to be watching out for them. They take priority here. This is not a cycleway. And as always, being a local boy, I know the shortcut, so I could go down to the right-hand side, but I know there's a nice cut through here that there are fewer pedestrians, and it leads out over another bridge and gives me good access back onto the old Thorpe Road.
This sort of road design is now quite typical as well, so they've actually created a cycle lane in between the two lanes of traffic, so cyclists can get to the front of the queue, and have this own little area here for waiting so they get off first, having priority. This is what I like, but don't like. It's the right thing to do, but if it's inconsistent across the systems in Norwich, how do you know what you're supposed to do if every set of traffic lights is different? It needs to be consistent. You're either giving priority to cyclists or you're not. Just my opinion.
It's not just cyclists doing things wrong. Watch this white, what is that in front? Is that an Astra in front? He's going to go straight across a pedestrian crossing when someone's waiting to cross. Bit naughty. But thankfully I noticed that they're wanting to cross. No, he should have waited for them. I do. And they're very grateful for it. So while I'm in the area, I'm going to pop up to GridServe. But on the right here, they're now building a new Inchcape Jaguar. This is going to be a huge Jaguar dealership, so it'd be very interesting to see what they do with electric car provision for the future and how many chargers Jaguar are going to put in themselves rather than just rely on the GridServe site, which is just around the corner. And there it is right in front. You can't miss it, especially at night when it's illuminated. Beautiful place. One of the things that's really interesting about this grid-served Norwich site is since it was built and opened, which wasn't that long ago, the amount it's used, the amount of electric cars charging here and the amount of people using the site just for the Marks and Spencers and WH Smith inside, etc. The amount of customers is growing very, very quickly. There's always a row of Teslas in use here. But what's also good, there's always free chargers as well. It's never at full capacity because it's got a lot of chargers here. So it's a great place to come and charge your electric car. Really love this site. And the people here as well are great. The gurus especially. Anyway, that's the detour over. I'm now heading home and I can definitely start to feel my legs now. And here we are, back on the road where we first started the film. Took 29 miles in total for the journey. I can't believe an old person like me, not that fit, can do 29 miles on one of these electric bikes. And I wouldn't say I was knackered, but I could feel my legs. I could do with a rest after that, but that was very enjoyable. I could have done a few more. I'm really quite surprised that when I used to cycle a few years ago and I was fitter, I had an ordinary bicycle. The maximum distance I'd ever done on it was 32 miles, and here I am on my second major trip out on this new bike, and I'm not fit at all, and I can do almost the same distance as I did as a maximum when I was fitter. These electric bikes really do help you get out and help you, no, I wouldn't say necessarily help you get fitter, but they just really assist you to do more and go more places, so you can commute further, you can have more fun. I like cycling not just for the sake of it, for doing exercise and doing the same loop over and over again. I like to go somewhere with a purpose. That's what I really enjoyed with this cycle ride. Hope you enjoyed it too. Hope you enjoyed some of the scenery. The way back, especially with the cycleway on the Marriots Way and through the centre of Norwich, was absolutely beautiful. So hope it was worthwhile filming and worthwhile sharing with you. Hope you don't mind my moaning or my mistakes that I've made on the road. Anyway, more videos to come about solar panels, batteries, electric cars, and hopefully some more rides like this. I want to do this now and go the other direction and go to the coast. It's the big thing that I wanted this bike for. I want to be able to cycle to the coast. I've never done it before, apart from when I was a child, and I'd like to be able to do it again, and I think I've now got the range to do it. Anyway, I'll end the video with the image of how much battery life we've got left. I think we had something like 39%, which seemed like not a lot proportionally, so it'd be very interesting to see how many miles I could actually go on that 39%. It says I think I had 20 something miles left of range, so in total it looks like my bike could do 50-ish miles in the auto mode that I was using. Here's a good example again. It's not using electric power because I'm going over 16 miles an hour, but I am faster than most bikes on the road because you get up to that speed and then the effort you're using is just keeping you above the 16 miles an hour. And normally, as you come up to this hill at the bottom here, this is where I'd slow down a lot. Now I'm just slowing down to the 16 and then letting the assist take me up the hill. Anyway, thanks again for joining. Take care. Really do appreciate you watching these videos, and I hope this wasn't too long, and I hope there was enough for you to see. Isn't it interesting, though? I started out negatively saying there would be incidents, and there wasn't really. This was quite an incident-free ride, which really, really pleased me, so I'm happy that the routes I took me away from most of the pedestrians that would be causing the problems. See you again soon for more videos. Bye for now.